1 minute ago, NASA repeated something they have been saying since the first orbital solutions came out. 3i Atlas was never on a collision path with Earth. No threat, no near-miss panic, no impact scenario, just another icy traveler passing through like a stranger in a crowd. They placed it safely beyond our orbit during closest approach, moving too fast to ever be captured. Clean, simple, closed case, right? Except the numbers refused to sit quietly. Because even after NASA's assurance, people who stared at the trajectory map noticed something unnerving. 3i Atlas did not wander loosely through the solar system. It threaded a razor-thin corridor, slipping beneath the planetary plane, curving inward, passing just inside Mars, and then sliding across Earth's orbital neighborhood with uncanny alignment. Not a hit. Not even close enough to trigger risk models. But close enough to feel intentional. Close enough that the line drawn across star maps looks less like chaos and more like a chosen route. 3i Atlas is the third interstellar object humanity has ever confirmed. The first was Oumuamua, mysterious, fast, never explained. The second, 2i Borisov, looked like a normal comet and behaved like one. But this one arrived hot, activated late, and then flew a path that feels almost rehearsed. A visitor cutting through our solar system as if reading invisible signposts. Scientists stress that space is big, gravity guides everything, and coincidences happen all the time. They are right mathematically. But thousands of bodies drift here for millions of years, and only 3 have ever come from another star. The third arrives now, in the era of all-sky surveys and backyard telescopes, skimming through just close enough for us to see it with consumer optics. That timing alone raises eyebrows. Maybe it is nothing. Maybe it is everything. But when you overlay Earth's orbit and 3i Atlas's path, the precision is uncomfortable. It feels like someone took a cosmic thread and pulled it tight between worlds, a clean arc down toward the sun, a flick past our lane, then onward toward Jupiter, as if the gas giant was waypoint number 2. Natural? Probably. Coincidental? Maybe. But convenient? Suspiciously so. So NASA says no danger, and technically they are right. But the internet is asking a different question entirely. Not, would it hit us? But why did it pass exactly here, exactly now, on this clean, elegante trajectory through the inner system? If this was just random rock, why does the geometry line up so uncomfortably well with us? Picture the orbital map for a second, not as numbers on a JPL page, but as a three-dimensional path carved through space. 3i Atlas dropped in from above the planetary plane like a diver breaking the surface, then knifed downward toward the Sunday. It grazed the inner system, dipped just inside Mars's orbit, crossed the ecliptic near Earth's neighborhood, yet never truly approached us, holding a distance roughly twice the Earth-Sun gap. A hairline thread drawn across billions of kilometers, but so clean you could trace it with a fingertip. In astronomy scale, that kind of pass is absurdly narrow. Space is not a highway, it is an ocean. Planets drift like islands, scattered wide. For an object from another star to slide through that maze with such geometry, with that smooth bend around the inner orbits, feels less like randomness and more like choreography. Not a collision course nowhere near. But not careless either. It was as if Atlas knew the lanes and chose one. So people started pulling up charts, screenshots, orbital plots, dynamicists, telescope nerds, forum threads that read like detective boards. They circled the point where Atlas sliced across Earth's orbital track, highlighted the slow blue arc of our planet in December, marked the moment when both worlds were on the same side of the Sunday. December 19th became a talking point, overlays stacking like transparency sheets. You scroll through comments and see someone write, "This missed distance is way too clean," and even if you roll your eyes, some part of you understands why they typed it. Because when you zoom out, the path looks casual. Zoom in, and it looks designed. It came in steep, flattened, skimmed past, never touching us but never wandering wide. A ghost brushing against the edges of our neighborhood, close enough to see, far enough to ignore unless you were watching carefully. NASA calls it natural orbital mechanics influenced by gravity and nothing more, and they are probably right, But logic does not erase how that trajectory feels in a human brain, deliberate, threaded, precise. But it is the timing, not just the path, that makes people uneasy. What are the odds? Discovered in early July, just half a year before it would make its silent sweep through the inner system, 3I Atlas moved on a schedule almost theatrical in its pacing. Closest to Earth in late December, when half the planet was on holiday and looking at the sky more than usual, then onward toward Jupiter in mid-March as if the gas giant were waiting like the next chapter. A perfect arc. Arrival, approach, departure, then a gravitational handoff that feels too neat for a wanderer from the void. And yet, everything about that line checks out. Mathematically, discovery, approach window, projected trajectory, all ordinary on paper. Still, a small circle of astronomers and enthusiasts raised eyebrows, not claiming aliens, not declaring intent, just noting how strangely optimized that route looked for gravity leverage. Among them, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, who has built a career out of asking uncomfortable cosmic questions. He cautioned that interstellar objects force us to rethink assumptions, that some paths look engineered, even when natural formation can explain them. 3I Atlas sits right in that eerie middle ground, bizarre enough to question, normal enough to doubt your own suspicion. Scroll Reddit, X, astronomy discords, maps, overlays, highlighted perihelion dates. Someone writes, "This thing threaded the needle straight past us," and 5 replies agree without offering proof. In another post, a user drops models showing the object passing through a corridor only slightly wider than Mars's orbital reach and still aligning for a March-gravity interaction. It could be coincidence. It could be probability. But at 3 interstellar visitors in all of recorded history, statistics feel thin, like balancing meaning on a matchstick. The tension lives not in fact, but in feeling the sense that the cosmos knocked, but gently, like a hand on a door, rather than a stone through a window. A path too graceful to ignore, too distant to fear, too perfect to dismiss entirely. Mathematics shrugs, curiosity leans forward. So, is that targeting? Or just statistics playing tricks on us? Now here is where the romantic theory of targeting meets the heavy stone of orbital math. Survey telescopes track thousands of near-Earth objects every year. Most drift quietly, unremarkable, but now and then one draws a line across the solar system that looks eerie only because we happen to be standing in the right frame of view when it passed. Our brains love patterns. They see messages in chance, geometry in chaos, meaning in clean lines. But probability does not care about how we feel. If you watch long enough, some objects will look deliberate purely because randomness occasionally paints straight strokes. At Pasadena, JPL analysts do not guess. They clone trajectories not once but millions of times, nudging variables by dust grains, by fractions of velocity, by sunlight pressure, by the smallest tug from planetary gravity. Each simulation runs like a parallel universe, checking if one version even grazes Earth. Every solution for 3I Atlas misses. Not close, not maybe. Huge margins everywhere. No impact window. No threat corridor. Just a fast visitor slicing through with no hint of hesitation. By their models, the cosmic arrow never pointed at us to begin with. And this is the line that should anchor us. Targeting is not a feeling. It is a measurable course correction. Intent leaves scars in motion. You would see subtle accelerations, small nudges near perihelion, behavior that breaks the clean parabolic escape. A ship adjusts, a rock obeys gravity. 3I Atlas, so far, behaves like rock. Yet the story does not end with that. Because course corrections, even tiny ones, leave fingerprints. A flicker in velocity, a drift from predicted ephemerides, a non-gravitational push, too coherent to be outgassing noise. And a handful of observers believe they might have seen something like that in recent data. Faint, contested, but not nothing. And that is where the data gets interesting, because course corrections leave fingerprints. If something out there truly wanted to strike Earth, here is what that path would need to look like. Not one smooth arc, but a chain of careful moves. A nudge near the outer system to tighten the incoming angle. another when slipping by Mars to redirect momentum, then a final, precise bend near perihelion to fall toward the blue dot instead of gliding past it. Not dramatic thruster burns, just a series of tiny adjustments, barely measurable but unmistakable when they stack over millions of kilometers. That is what steering looks like on cosmic scales, not a turn, but a whisper. Astronomers know this, and they have been checking. Radar fits, optical tracking, astrometric refinement, all tuned to catch non-gravitational acceleration. Because comets push themselves when they vent gas, and sunlight can shove a body more than you would believe. So far, the measured offsets in 3I Atlas fit that natural noise. Small drifts consistent with outgassing. Variations inside the range you would get from solar radiation pressure. Nothing crisp, nothing directional, nothing like an engine deciding where to go. If it is a ship, it is the laziest pilot in the galaxy. And yet the online debate refuses to die. Because conspiracy needs only one coincidence to bloom, and Atlas delivered several. The threading near Mars, the gentle sweep across Earth's neighborhood, the alignment with Jupiter as if planning a gravity handshake. You can explain every step with physics, with statistics, with luck and sunlight and frozen volatiles cooking off. Still, people look at that smooth curve and feel watched, the same way you might feel walking alone at night. When you hear footsteps match your pace, logical or not, you turn and check. So why do some people still insist this path was no coincidence at all? Step back for a moment and place 3I Atlas not in isolation, but in the tiny family of objects that never belonged to our Sunday. The first was Oumuamua, a sliver of something fast and silent, flashing through in 2017 and leaving only arguments behind. Some swore it tumbled like a fractured rock. Others noted its accelerating drift, its strange cigar geometry, and whispered about solar sails and ancient relics. Years later, we still do not know, and the debate stains every interstellar visitor that follows. Then came 2I Borisov, a relief to astronomers, finally something that behaved like a comet is supposed to behave. Coma, outgassing, tail, predictable chemistry. A cosmic palate cleanser. Normal. Forgettable almost. Proof that not every outsider is a riddle. And now 3I Atlas stands awkwardly between them. Not obviously artificial, but not comfortably ordinary either. It flared late after perihelion, as if waking up when physics says it should be cooling down. It carved that uncanny path past Earth, then sailed toward Jupiter with composure that looks too tidy to be chance, even though chance is probably the truth. A body with contradictions, but no smoking gun. Weird, but not decisive. The kind of mystery that keeps scientists honest and conspiracy threads alive. Harvard's Avi Loeb framed it carefully in interviews, intriguing, worth watching, but not evidence of technology. On his informal Loeb scale, where interstellar oddities are ranked like chess positions waiting for the next move, 3I Atlas falls squarely in the gray. Not dismissed, not exalted. Filed under maybe, with a handwritten note that reads, needs more data. So, perhaps we are asking the wrong question. Maybe this was never about Earth being in danger, but about us being just close enough to notice. What if the question was never, did it target Earth, but why did it pass when we were finally ready to see it? A decade ago, we lacked the network we have today, sky surveys sweeping all night, backyard enthusiasts stacking exposures from rural farms, data shared publicly within hours instead of hidden behind institution walls. Humanity built a net of glass and CCD sensors across the planet, and almost as soon as it was woven tight enough, interstellar visitors began to slip through it. Not once, not twice, 3 times now. Like birds appearing only after you finally learn to look up. Maybe the alignment that feels like aiming is simply timing the universe dropping a stone into a pond exactly when we were close enough to hear the ripple. Think about it. 3I Atlas arrived after our tools matured, not before. It glided into a world wired for alerts, live streams, telescope chains, forums that ignite in seconds. We saw it, because we finally could. In another era, this would have passed unnoticed, a silent foreign traveler, uncounted and unnamed. Instead, millions watched its arc curve across simulated skies as if it were a character in a story we did not know we were part of yet. A Reddit user said it best under a zoomed orbital GIF: "Wild that the universe sent something weird exactly when we finally had cameras everywhere. Half joke, half awe." And maybe that is the heart of the no coincidence feeling, not targeting us, but brushing close enough to tap the window, enough to spark debate, enough to remind us that space is not empty, just quiet. So what if the trajectory was an invitation instead of a threat? What if the point was not proximity, but attention? A cosmic nudge saying, look sharper, build faster, be ready for the next one. Because if the path was a message, it might not be, we were aiming at you, but pay attention to what comes next. Here is the bottom line. Every mainstream orbital calculation agrees that 3I Atlas never came dangerously close to Earth. Our so-called near pass was still nearly twice the Earth-Sun distance, a gulf so wide that no impact model even bothered simulating worst-case outcomes. It was never coming here. It never even reached the zone where planetary defense protocols start clearing their throat. And that is exactly what makes this story stranger, not safer. We were not threatened, only observed, or more accurately, we observed it, perhaps for the first time with eyes sharp enough to really notice. Because when something crosses your neighborhood without touching your door, the mind writes its own narrative. We draw patterns on a canvas of stars and call coincidences messages. 3 interstellar visitors in human history is barely a statistic, it is a whisper. One mysterious and tumbling, one ordinary and icy, one threaded and uncanny. A sequence too small to decode, too rare to ignore. Maybe natural, probably natural, but natural does not mean understood. We barely know how objects born around other suns freeze, fracture, or navigate gravity. We pretend our models are universal when they are only local. So instead of fear, let curiosity drive. Instead of assuming intention, assume possibility. Watch the next months closely as 3I Atlas approaches Jupiter, where the true test begins. A slingshot around the giant could stretch its tail, peel off new material, or silence it entirely. Gravity will speak, and motion never lies. If the trajectory shifts beyond the gentle push of radiation and gas, if the arc bends cleaner than physics predicts, the debate will not end, it will deepen. For now, we stand beneath a sky that suddenly feels smaller. A visitor passed by, not close enough to harm, but close enough to wonder. And that may be the real story, not that it targeted Earth, but that Earth finally noticed.